What farm animals should you get? What kind of farm animals should you be starting out with when you start your homestead? What would we start with? What did we start with? If I was like doing it all over again from the beginning, what would I recommend for you for, let's say, 3 groups of farm animals that would be the best thing for you to have on your homestead? Welcome to Goose Pond Hideout with Rob. So, I've been thinking about it, and a common question that I get is, what kind of critters do you have on your homestead? What should you have? What would I recommend to you if you were like starting out on your homestead? So let's just jump right on in. And when we moved here, 10 and a half years ago or so, what did we do, and then what would I have done different? So the very, very first farm animal that we got when we moved here is actually a kitten, and she adopted us. One day in our very first summer here, we heard this noise, like a crying sound, and we wondered what it was. And then eventually, and it was kind of rainy, and I looked down and there was this itty bitty little tiny kitten underneath our porch, and it would stick its head out and look up at me and go meow. So I went out to our barn, got one of those big live traps. I put a piece of bologna in it because that's what I had available, and I put it underneath the porch, and it wasn't 5 minutes and I caught the little kitten. So I moved her into the barn, and of course I went and got, cat food and that, and I started feeding her. And she was basically, a feral kitten. And over the months I would put food up on the shelf and she would jump up there. And then while she was eating, I would pet her and that and take care of her. And so that was our first farm animal, was this little bitty kitten that we named Chloe, and she was our barn cat. And that's, the thing that I want to bring up here is, you'll say, well, that's not a farm animal. When you have what would typically be domestic animals, dogs and cats, when you have them on a farm, on a homestead, it's a different situation. They're not the same critters that you have when you're living in, the 15th story building apartment. They have a real job here, and they take their jobs, really seriously. So Chloe lived in the barn in that, for her first year or so, and then she started to come in. I learned real fast that you can't really feed, cats and that in the barn. So that was Chloe. Then we started talking about what we were going to do with her, and then she ended up having a litter of kittens, so we didn't get her fixed until after she had her kittens, and we gave away we have female kitten to a friend, and we kept the 2 boys, and that's Carrot, which of course is an orange cat, and his brother Tank, which is a big black cat, and they're big cats. And they're barn cats, farm cats. They pretty much, they stay outside. Carrot, the orange cat, he would stay outside all the time. He'd never come into the house. He likes to be petted and stuff like that. They're friendly, but he's an outside cat. Tank comes in, he follows me around like a puppy dog. Wherever I go, he's always right behind me. And I feed the cats in the house because I don't want to be feeding every other animal, in the wilderness out here. Rats, raccoons, other people's cats, whatever. I don't want to be feeding. And so I feed the cats in the house, and then that way I can check on them too. When they, come in to eat, I can check their paws and their ears and make sure they don't have any injuries or anything like that. So that's farm cats, barn cats, and they're very, very important to have on the homestead because they keep, mice and rodents and things away. Then there's the doggies, right? And we have Bonnie. She's 7 now, our quote blue heeler, and she's probably more of a Texas heeler because that shows through a little bit more. And again, she takes her job very, very seriously. She patrols the property. You know, I spent a lot of time teaching her where to go. She's laying on the ground right over here, keeping an eye on things. And she, you know, chases off the squirrels and, you know, raccoons, possums, anything like that. Sheep, of course, the coyotes and things tend to stay away because she's walking around, you know, barking and that and chasing things off. And then we got a little bitty rat terrier Yorkie cross. She's just a year old. She's our youngest. And she thinks that she's a farm dog. She was supposed to be a lap dog for my wife in the house, but she spends her, wherever I go, she goes, right? So she's right over here too, walking around. And then I don't know if you can see him in the camera. Of course, Tater, he's 2 years old now, and he's more of a house cat. We got him, and but he obviously spends a lot of time outside. So that's dogs and cats for farm animals that have a real job to do. They're not just pets. They're actually like working animals on the farm. Then the second group of animals that you would get, of course, would be chickens. I mean, everybody pretty much recommends chickens for your first farm animal. Excuse me, a little congested here in this high heat that we're having. So chickens are pretty much easy to take care of. And now you buy feed that is complete, so you don't need to worry about giving them any other things. And you know, what you really need to think about and I'm talking about egg-laying chickens, is you've got to be aware and thinking about how you're going to take care of them. You know, are you going to let them free range? I let chickens free range. We do lose a few from time to time. In the spring, when other animals are having their babies, they're looking for an easy, simple food source, so we got to kind of be careful in the spring. And then in the fall, when the leaves fall off the trees and the young hawks are out on their own that would normally be eating mice and things, you know, they're looking for a, quote, easy meal too. So in the early spring and in the fall, we got to be a little careful. I'll tend to keep them closed up a little bit more. Maybe just let them out in the afternoon for a little while. But egg-laying chickens. And something that you want to be thinking about is how you're going to care for these chickens, and then what you're going to do if something happens. Because, you know, you may go to the feed store or online and buy chickens, and buy female chickens, what are called pullets or young female chickens, and typically you end up getting a rooster. Our very, very first batch of chickens we bought from a company called My Pet Chicken, because back in the day, many, 10-ish years ago, when you ordered from hatcheries, they had a 25 chick minimum, and we didn't want 25 chickens to start out with. So My Pet Chicken, where we live, they go by the time of the year and the location where you are relative to them, and we could get 6 chickens. So we ordered 6 baby chicks, day-old chicks. You can ship them in the mail because they don't need to eat for 2 or 3 days right after they hatch. So it works out, you mail them. They put them in a little box with straw on that, and they put a little, like one of those heat pad things in there, and they're good to go. We got 1 rooster out of the batch. So, if you live in a place that roosters aren't allowed, we're unincorporated rural, we can pretty much do whatever we want here. But a lot of people, you live in places where you probably can hear the roosters in the background. We got a lot of roosters. So you might have to have a place where you've got to get rid of the rooster, so be thinking how you're going to do that. A lot of people don't like to just cull them. It's hard to give away roosters to other people. So be thinking about, when you get farm animals, what you're going to do with them down the road if things don't quite work out the way that you want them to. And then you got your fresh eggs and breeds. I'm a fan of Easter eggers. Easter eggers are an Americana, which is the blue laying chicken, and you cross it with something else. So they're half breeds. So that makes them kind of healthier, and they lay bluish eggs, which is sort of fun if you've got kids. If you've got, it's just the 2 of us now. We're, old folks now. All our kids are grown up. But if you've got, you know, kids, the blue eggs are kind of fun. And they look different. You know, we named ours, and in fact, we've still got Charlotte, which is one of our original chickens. She's over 10 years old now, and she stays pretty close to the coop. And, you know, she goes out and gets the water and the feed and walks around a little bit. And she gets up on the roost every night. I check on her, make sure she's in the coop, and I check her feet and make sure she's okay. You know, she's 10 years old. And so that's the fun thing about Easter eggers. And I think they've got smallish combs, so if you live up north, they're good. And because they're half-breeds, they tend to be healthier. And they all look different, like I mentioned, so the kids can name them and that. If you get like a black Australorp and you've got 8 chickens, they're twins. They're all identical. So you can't, you know, tell them apart or that, which just for egg laying is great. But, you know, they're not as much fun, and they just lay a plain egg or whatever. So definitely chickens is what you want to get. And then the next, you know, the number 3 grouping of what to get would be rabbits. You keep rabbits in hutches, and hang on a minute. Crazy cars going by. All right. Rabbits. You keep them in hutches, and they're easy to care for. You breed them when you want to, and yes, you're raising rabbits for meat. You know, we all got to eat, right? You don't want to be going to the grocery store for everything. Part of being self-sufficient. So, you know, you're gonna raise your rabbits and eat the baby bunnies, right? Sorry about that, but that's life. That's the truth. And rabbit poop you can put right onto your garden, the little pellets, and you know, you don't have to let anything age. With chickens, you've got their waste material, their poop is hot, and you've got to let it sit for a year or more before you can put that on your garden. Rabbit poop, you can scoop it up, put it right on the garden, it's good to go. So, you know, rabbit, they're easy to care for. If, you know, again, kids, you know, everybody likes having a bunny, right? And you keep the mom and the dad ones, so, you know, they're can be like pets for the kids or yourself. And, you know, they have their offspring and they go in the freezer, you know, and that's that. And then other animals, you know, we have a lot of guineas. They're good for tick control. Again, a lot of it's going to come down to your situation. What can your animals free range? Our guineas obviously run around. There would be no point to having guineas if you kept them in a run. In the spring, when they're mating and going crazy running around, we typically, you know, lose one on the road that gets hit by a car because they run around just like nuts. And a predator may get a hen or something sitting on a nest of eggs. I try to find the nest, but sometimes they hide them pretty well. And then, of course, your bigger animals, your pigs and goats and dairy cattle, cows and things. A lot of people want goats. I think they're pretty hard to take care of in that. So, you know, those are the kinds of things that you want to be thinking about. Is your typical domestic pets, dogs and cats, but they're completely different animals on the farm. Egg-laying chickens and bunny rabbits for a meat source. So let me know what you think. What's the best animals to have on the farm?